About a year ago in the Battlecruiser Widowmine to Grandmasters series, I played an absolutely crazy game against a Protoss player where I ended up having 186 supply of Battlecruisers. That game I ended up there quite late and honestly in desperation just to deal with my opponent's already existing Sky Fleet. I ended up wondering if tailoring a build specifically to rush up to the maximum possible amount of BCs, 33 Battlecruisers for about 198 supply, would be a strong idea. Because what reasonable unit count could possibly beat that army of Battlecruisers, right? I set it on a quest to make it happen against a strong Grandmaster player, and this is the game that came out of it, so here we go. So the opponent here is called Pick, a Grandmaster Protoss that was, I believe, 5450 MMR, which should be about top 75 Grandmaster. Now, honestly, I expected to do this challenge against a Terran or Zerg player, because Protoss players these days, I'm not quite sure if you guys are super familiar with the meta at high level, but they tend to play a lot of what is called Gateway Man, which very simply means that they take a lot of bases, they take very few gases, and they don't really make a lot of tech units at all. Typically, they would make either 2 or 3 Colossus, and besides that, they would just spam Zealots and Stalkers like crazy, and use the remaining gas on a couple of Disruptors. That way, the Disruptors can prevent the Terran army from snowballing, and they can just keep warping in 25 Zealots and base shit and whatnot. I think it's an absolutely horrible style to play against. It is very, very annoying, but it is very strong. And I think it should also be pretty good against the Battlecruiser challenge, because they would have 1,000,000 Stalkers before I can snowball a good amount of Battlecruisers. Now, obviously, it is going to be incredibly hard for me to just, you know, casually go up to 1,000,000 Battlecruisers. Like, I would actually have to make, a decent amount of units first. And that is kind of where the problem lies, because I could go for, let's say, a proper stimmed buy army with tanks and then make BCs. That would delay my BCs by a lot, but I would be able to deal with the Zealots. But if I delay my BCs, what's going to happen is that my opponent will get the bases up very fast, and then they can really make a good counter, such as Mass Tempest, for example, right? If I go for BCs a little faster, that is what I was talking about in the little intro text, or speech, however you want to call that, that I want to get it as fast as possible, because then there's probably not going to be a good unit count to deal with it. Because Stalkers are great. Against 33 BCs, however, I'm not quite sure they're going to be so good. Against that amount of BCs, you're going to want a lot of cannons everywhere, a lot of batteries, and just as many Tempests as you can make with the limited supply you have, pretty much. Because that's kind of the problem with making Tempest normally. I say normally as if this is a normal challenge, but let's say I sacrifice all of my SCVs, because that's what I have to do, right, to make 33 Battlecruisers. My opponent might only have 15 or 20 Tempest, and then I'm going to have pretty much double the amount of Battlecruisers. But if they already have the setup with cannons and batteries everywhere, and they can just poke from a distance, then that's going to be an incredibly hard situation. That's also how I lost that game that I was talking about earlier, where I get 186 supply BCs. My opponent did already have 1,000,000 Tempest, and maybe even a Mothership, and the setup everywhere. And then it was also a small map, to be fair, so it was kind of hard to maneuver around, and then we were in trouble. Now, the end composition that I want is not just 33 Battlecruisers, but also 1 Raven. A Raven is 2 supply, and that's going to make sure that I have a perfectly well-rounded 200 supply, and that's going to be an absolutely brutal army. I would have 33 BCs, all with Yamatos, and then a 1 Raven, which doesn't sound like it has that much impact, but listen to this, guys. An anti-armor missile with Battlecruisers. Battlecruisers shoot super fast. Every single hit does 2 more damage, I believe, with the current anti-armor missile. That is extremely painful. And it also gives detection, which, obviously I should have enough orbitals, but who knows. So the build I chose for this game, I already did a couple attempts, by the way. This was not an easy challenge by any means. The build I chose for this was to go for something a little more classic. Widowmine drops, not usually that strong anymore in these days meta. There was a patch at some point that gave the Widowmine like 4 nerfs, and since then, I don't think I've ever seen a Widowmine drop really hit home. But what it does do is give you a little bit of scouting. So my Widowmine drop is going to go in here. I should be able to see how many gases he has. I saw a Stalker moving out on the map. I also saw that he made a blind battery, which I'm not quite sure why, because I'm pretty sure I played a regular Reaper expand, but I guess he just wants to feel safe. And this way, I'm just going to kill 2 probes, but I'm being annoying. I get a little bit of a scout. If he was going to attack me with the Stalkers, they are now pulled back, and I feel like this is just going to make me feel a little bit safer. Whether I'm actually going to be that much safer against a timing attack like 4-Gate Blink, I'm not so sure. But for now, it feels pretty good, and I was pretty happy with this opening. Now, there was one thing at this point that I was contemplating. I thought I could either go for the BCs right away, or I could make Banshees first. And I was thinking about it because Banshees, they would once again delay my Battlecruiser transition, but they do fit really well with the Marine Tank composition, because Marine Tank doesn't need that much support to defend against Stalkers just by themselves. And Banshees would be very good at dealing damage on the other side. Now that Liberator, sadly, my opponent... I was actually impressed here. Here I was clicking probes that barely went back on out of the range of the Liberator zone, so they didn't die. That was a... yeah, you could say roughly 3 out of 10 micro moment by me. But in the end, we once again did distract our opponent, and now hopefully we can take our third base pretty soon. But I was definitely impressed. I mean, he pulled the workers away from the Widowmine drop. That was expected because the Widowmine drop just plays a sound alert now, so it's kind of hard to not. But he also reacted to the Liberator in time and perfectly, blinked away the Stalkers. They were getting low HP, so my opponent definitely up to the task here. I saw the Observer over there. I really want to kill the Observer because I don't want my opponent to know that I'm, well, first of all, going for Battlecruisers, right? That's already something I don't want my opponent to know right away. But also, later on, I don't want him to be able to scout my exact composition. Because if I'm gonna go for mech with Battlecruisers, Marine Tank with Battlecruisers, that requires a pretty different response than someone literally just making BCs. Like, think about this. The moment he sees that I would be making 5-star per Battlecruisers without anything else, he could literally make 5 Stargate Tempest without a single ground unit, without any care in the world, and that's it. If he sees I'm also making tanks, he's gonna have to make something that can deal with that early on, like maybe a couple Disruptors, maybe a lot of Zealots, whatever his, style of choice is. And scouting would just make it so much easier for him, so I really wanted to hunt down the Observer, and we did. And now I'm already gonna be making turrets. Just one hint, guys. If you're gonna play something like this, even if you're just playing mech, but especially if you're playing something as crazy as this, like Battlecruisers, Protoss players are very often gonna kill you with a single Warp Prism. The army you have is not gonna be good against Chargels in your base. Doesn't matter if you have tanks or just BCs. 10 Zealots in your main base will kill you, so just make sure you build 1,000,000 turrets around your main base as soon as you have a reasonable amount of money, right? Like, you don't want to make it on 2 bases, but once you get your third land and once you have about 30 SCVs, you're probably going to start making these turrets already. And now, yeah, I mean, my economy is still not as good as I really want it to be. Like, Battlecruisers are going to be very, very expensive, especially combined with double armory upgrades, right? There we go, another Observer, by the way. That's fantastic. I'm not quite sure if I saw it. I remember that I was looking at an Observer and I just didn't have a scan, and it really annoyed me. It was probably that one, so thank goodness that freaking turret finished. Now, so far, we haven't seen too much by the opponent. We've just seen a bunch of Blink Stalkers, and we have seen him play pretty aggressive with them. Probably a good sign of Gateway Man here. Like, you don't want to, confirm that 100% here. The turrets that were intended for the Warp Prism are going to be able to deny that hallucinated Phoenix, which is absolutely awesome. Also, I didn't mention it, but my cloak did get denied for the Banshees by that little, I think it was 5 Stalker squad in my main base earlier, which means that, didn't really make sense to make more than 1 Banshee, so I ended up just canceling the second one and going straight into BCs. Now, upgrades are really important for Battlecruisers. Once again, guys, any unit that shoots frequently, right? Like a Marine, for example, that is stimmed also shoots very frequently. Upgrades are super, super important. Attack upgrades on Battlecruisers are absolutely broken. Now, you have to keep in mind that if you're making a high-tech unit like the Battlecruiser, it is more likely that your opponent has better upgrades than you. So then it kind of becomes a little bit of an opposite race, right? If you don't have the attack upgrades, your opponent will have more armor upgrades, and then all of a sudden your BCs just hit like a wet noodle, and that's something you definitely do not want. So here I see a Robo Bay, and I see double upgrades. That normally would still indicate Gateway Man, because you want to go for 2 or 3 Colossus, right, and then Disruptors. He did also have a Templar Archives, though, and that kind of caught me off guard a little bit, because Storm is not really a part of it. And I wasn't quite sure if I was happy seeing this. If I think about it now, it should be pretty good, because Storm, don't be deceived, surprisingly good against Battlecruisers. Battlecruisers clump up a lot, so if you have 20 BCs, if they eat a full Storm, that is 1,600 damage from literally just 1 Storm. So that is pretty painful. I always thought that Storm was even a bit underrated against mech, because Colossus against mech are not that great. Like, they don't do bonus damage against armor. They're only good against light, so they're good against the Hellbats, but tanks absolutely annihilate them. But just one storm that you can, launch from a pretty far range and just back off, it's actually a very good space denial. Like, tanks are not going to be able to move forward that fast if you have storm. And it's also really, really good against Hellbats. Like, absolutely amazing. Now, against Battlecruisers, it's also not that bad. But I still did think, if my opponent's going for Robo Bay and Storm, that does mean that he's not going to expand as fast as he probably wants to against his composition. So overall, this is going to be pretty good. Now, notice how carefully I'm expanding here. Keep in mind that I don't want to lose any tanks. Now, here I noticed that he barely had any anti-air at all, so I decided to go on top. He is going to go for the recall on the Immortals. I'm going to kill one of those prisms. That could have 4 Templars inside, by the way. There's a very good chance that any prism that we see is going to have 4 High Templars inside, so it's always good Yamatoing those. But I think that's the first time he really was aware of our strategy. If you paid attention to his army composition there, you would have seen a decent amount of Zealots, 6 Immortals, and not that many Stalkers. That means that he probably thought that we were playing mech, right? Because why else would you make 6 Immortals against a guy that's going to spam BCs? I mean, still, his best composition that he could possibly do against this, even with all the tanks and stuff, is just to make, a million Tempest, and that's pretty much it. You don't need anything else. Battlecruisers, they are really not that good against Tempest. And I guess now we have a little bit of relaxed time since my opponent is going to be... Oh, well, he's right here. I was going to say, this is going to leave us alone for a little bit. And he attacked anyway. I guess I was definitely right about him being a little more aggressive Protoss, judging by those early Stalker moves. Now, here you can see how much damage the Battlecruisers do, by the way. Like, he's trading all this for a command center, which is admittedly not the craziest trade ever, because he wants to deny my eco as much as possible. How many resources do you guys think he lost for that? Like 2,000 or 3,000 or something? It was a very significant amount. Now, I did want to explain to you guys the dynamic a little bit between Tempest and BCs. Typically what happens, Tempest are always fighting you from a distance. They usually have one Oracle for Revelation, so they get easy vision without their observers being sniped, right? Then you have the move when you can teleport on top of the BCs. Like, especially if you get 33, you can kind of sandwich... the Tempest. So you teleport, let's say, like 15 on one side and the other 18 they move in from the front. And that's where the recall comes into play. So they can, after you teleport on top of them, they can just recall to a base. And then your teleport is going to be on cooldown for 70 seconds. Well, their Tempest will be able to just shoot you for free again. And then you might think, well, you can either wait out the cooldown of the teleport and try to go for it again. Or you can split the BCs and first teleport half, then see where he recalls and teleport half on that. That's when the mothership comes into play for another recall. And that's kind of how the Protoss counters BCs, because they just exhaust your teleports and they use their 2 different recall tools. And if you don't have a teleport, BCs just get annihilated. You can't fly on top of Tempest. They will just one-shot one of them, fly away, one-shot another one, and that's where it gets tough. So ideally, you don't get into the situation where they have a lot of Tempest. If you do, you're going to want to go for massive outplay tactics, split your BCs in maybe even 4 groups, try to hit bases here and there, and then all of a sudden do get a really big teleport action going on. Maybe you do find the mothership or something like that, but it becomes a very hectic, crazy game. Now, for now, it really doesn't seem like my opponent is going to go for that kind of Tempest play, so we can just, really chill and keep making more and more BCs. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about the specific resource management tactic that I went for in this game. There are, I guess, 2 ways to do a challenge like this. The first way is perhaps the one you guys were expecting me to do, which is to build a massive economy and then sacrifice all the SCVs and make a ton of Battlecruisers at once, right? So that would be, I don't know, maybe me going up to, let's say, even 100 workers, or maybe 80 to be safe, 80 or 90. Then you make maybe like 10 extra orbitals, and then you throw all of the workers away. You use mules to, be able to stay afloat despite not having SCVs on minerals. Then when you have enough gas, you sacrifice those, blah, 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 blah. The reason why I went for a lower eco approach and started sacrificing SCVs and stuff a little earlier is exactly because my opponent was playing with a lot of Stalkers. If I didn't make this many BCs early, there's a really good chance that he would have been able to blink cut off with 30 Stalkers. And then if he kills 5 BCs, we are pretty much instantly screwed, because it is just, a very... Like, BCs are really good, but they take very long to build. So if you lose 5, it just sets you back by for freaking ever, and it's just so bad. So what I wanted to make sure in this game, especially against Terran and Zerg, I would have done the other approach, by the way. Definitely go for a massive eco first and then sacrifice. But against Protoss, I was a little bit too afraid I would die early to anything like that, just a big Stalker attack or whatever. So I wanted to make sure I always had a good tank count and a good BC count early. And judging by how his attacks have gone, I would say that was a good idea, right? Like, so far, every time he tried to attack us, we were able to either save our base or just do an incredible amount of damage to his army. So I would say that it's paid off. And in the end, we are still about maxed. We don't really have a big bank going on, especially not for 5-star per battlecruiser with double upgrade standards, but it's looking pretty alright. Now at this point, I would say that we have... Maybe we're approaching 20 battlecruisers and we won 33. I still have about 8 siege tanks. I think I might even still have a couple marines, or maybe I threw away the final ones in that base on the top left. I'm not quite sure. And this fight, this is what it's gonna look like. This is only about half the PCs that I want to get, by the way. Now, don't be fooled. Just as a general tip, I know here I'm 100% going for the challenge to make, you know, 198 supply of pure battlecruisers. But if you want to play this style yourself, you probably don't want to get too confident and teleport across, because this, when you're playing it, it feels kind of chill, you know? Like, you're defending with your tanks, you feel like things are going well, you feel like you're getting a decent amount of money. But what's happening is this Protoss player has so much more money than me, is not even funny. And he probably has... Like, I'm not kidding, with a standard gateway man meta, and that's not even when you're playing against BCs, you go up to 25 gateways. This guy could have even more. He could literally warp in 30 Stalkers whenever he wants to. So you don't really want to go across too fast. Like, if I would teleport across right now, there's either a chance that he just warps in enough Stalkers to kill my BCs, and then I'm screwed because his economy is too good and mine sucks. Or he can just counterattack me, kill my bases, make sure I can never remax, and then fight the army while having built gateways somewhere else. So it is really not as straightforward as it looks. If my opponent, by the way, just so you guys know, if he wasn't so aggressive with all of his units, I would have been way more aggressive with my BCs. And also, if I wasn't necessarily going for the challenge 100% to make 33 BCs, I also would have been a little more aggressive, because BCs are pretty good at that. But this guy definitely pushed me back into my corner a little bit, as well as, you know, me really not wanting to lose any BCs. And so far, I'm not quite sure if you guys noticed, we have been quite lucky in the engagements. I feel like very often he targets one BC, gets it down to like 10 health or something, and then he leaves. Now, this is my first little bit of aggression. I thought this was a really nice move. I kill a base on the right that was building, and now I'm going to kill this base for free. You're going to see how fast it's going to disappear, by the way, to 3-3 BCs. Everything you saw there, the pylons, the cannons, besides that one gas in the top, as you can see on the minimap, is already gone. Now, he did start making DTs, which is kind of annoying, because as you can tell, I'm pretty low on money. Now, at this point, I thought I was probably approaching having enough gas, but keep in mind that you do have to repair the battlecruisers as well. I have... How many BCs is that? I have gas for 10 battlecruisers, and then I wouldn't be able to repair any of them. Now, I still have to throw away my tanks. I was trying to be really as smart as possible as I could about this. So I'm taking it very slow, and as soon as I have the money for another battlecruiser, we can either kill a couple SCVs or we could kill another tank. Before, I was way more tempted to just kill SCVs instead. But now, since my money is running really low, I think I'm gonna go for the tanks instead. Here we go. Yeah, exactly. He did have... I Yamato the Prism. The Prism is going to die with probably the rest of the Templar inside, which is really nice. Now, here, look at the damage that Storm is doing, by the way. Like, Storm is freaking insane. Now, he wants to go forward, but I did bring the tanks forward. I am going to lose 2 BCs there, but we are going to kill pretty much his entire army for this, it seems like. Well, he's going to keep a bunch of Stalkers alive, but he loses all of the expensive stuff. But this is, yeah, clearly a very expensive moment here. Like, this is the kind of stuff I'm talking about. Like, I really want to make the BCs, but I need to be so careful. I still need my tanks close. And this is when I was really happy that I indeed did not sacrifice those tanks early, because without those 2 tanks, the Stalkers could have blinked on top, maybe kill another, like, 3 to 5 BCs or so, and that would have been very painful. Now, if those tanks weren't in the back, I'm sure he would have blinked for it, but every Protoss player that has played enough against Terran, they will know what happens to your Stalkers when you blink forward into siege tanks, right? Like, siege tanks, first of all, they have a nice splash damage, bonus damage against armored, and they were protected by a million BC, so he wouldn't be able to focus them down. That would have been very painful. So here I just put all of my SCVs to try and repair this. At this point, I was actually tempted to replace tanks with SCVs as well. Like, I still think my approach, my strategy for managing the economy here was correct to actually make a lot of units instead of going for the super economy first. I do think I maybe should have kept a couple more SCV on minerals. Like, even though my main and natural pretty much already mined out, I think I could have kept a couple more on the minerals for sure. Now, my economy was a little better than I was expecting, to be fair. Like, at this point, I really didn't feel like there was much more money going to come in, but now we still do have, you know, money for 2 BCs. Now, I was going to go for another base snipe, but he saw me again with the observer, so I'm just going to go back. That's an easy kill. Here, I'm going to kill one more SCV so I can afford another Battlecruiser. I'm still going to sacrifice more SCV, so you can tell that I was really believing in my approach here. Now, at this point, I really do believe it would be a good time to kill a couple siege things. The SCVs, I was sending them to his base because it's not that crazy of an idea to sacrifice SCVs in the late game at all. Like, even if you're not playing a crazy style like this, you can sacrifice your SCVs and that is totally fine, you know. As other races, you don't usually do it that much because you don't have mules. That's a big benefit of playing Terran. But as a Terran, you very often end up sacrificing your SCVs if you just get enough orbitals. Now, first I was considering killing my tanks in my own base to make it seem, or not make him see that I was, you know, gonna go up to even more Battlecruisers. But I decided I could throw them away in a smarter way, which is by attacking. Like, this way I can kill a lot of Stalkers, really put a dent in his army count, as you can see. Well, I think I probably lost about 2 BCs here, kill a lot of those units, and now I had the genius idea of just abandoning my tanks. And that sounds very brutal, I know. But what I thought was, I don't want to give away the tanks too obvious, because then he would know that I'm going to make even more BCs. If he was going to ever transition into Tempest, he would do it if he sees that I'm also throwing away every single ground unit and stuff, right? And that's exactly what I didn't want. So I left those 3 tanks here, just to kind of make him think. There he kills another tank, by the way. That's very nice. Not the best idea by him, generally speaking, but he did kill a tank for me, which is great. I was thinking he would see those 3 tanks and just think, oh, this guy messed up, and he's going to kill those tanks, and he's not going to realize that I actually want to throw them away, which is really cool. And then at some point, if I really have to, I can still kill my tanks myself, of course. Now, the Raven so far, by the way, it's still alive, and it provided an insane amount of value. I think in most battles so far, we had the anti-armor missile, and especially in that last one, it was absolutely freaking massive. Now, I do really want to be careful for the storms in the next fight. There we go, we're going to lose them. Best part is that he actually made Zealots to kill it as well. Now, sadly for me, he is going to throw those away. He probably realizes that he doesn't need those anymore, unfortunately. So at this point, how many Battlecruisers are we at? I have 26 hotkey, not quite sure if that is the maximum amount. I think we're probably at 28 if you include the Battlecruisers that are already building so far. Now he's going to see that I have my Battlecruisers repaired back up. He did quickly snipe that sensor tower, by the way, which is a good snipe for him. And now what I'm going to do, I need to make 5 more BCs in total to accomplish my absolutely massive dream army. I'm going to just kill a tank, or actually I'm going to kill 2 tanks as soon as I have the money. Because as you can see, I have the money now, and 2 tanks is going to be the supply for 1 Battlecruiser, so we're going to kill 2 of them, and then we start another one. Now, it is actually crazy how many units you have to sacrifice to really achieve the 198 supply of Battlecruisers, because it's... Oh man, every time I was like, am I there yet? Am I there yet? And it just takes so freaking long to make them, and I needed more and more economy, because repair, by the way, cost about 25% of the unit cost, so repairing a full flock of BCs... I mean, it wasn't completely full. They weren't all literally 1 HP, but that probably cost me like 5 BCs in terms of resources, right? Because I already had like 25 at that point. So now I'm going to kill 6 SCVs and start another one. Am I completely out of tanks at this point? I see 1 more tank up there, which means we're not quite there yet. I think there I saw that I had 28 Battlecruisers, and I think I'm building 2 more, which means we are at 30 BCs right now. And if you guys have noticed this, my opponent has not shown his face strongly in a while. So this did make me think that maybe the transition that we have been scared of is finally on the cards, right? Like, he was really, really aggressive all the time. And now every time he was attacking us, it was like the 20 Stalkers that he had. Now it's 20 Stalkers with 15 Zealots. But there's no way we did enough economic damage for him to not have enough units at all, right? Like, he should have more units than this for sure. He should be very deeply maxed out with a bank. So where are the units? What is it going to be? Now, I was looking at my army count there. My army supply is 194. which means that I have 6 SCVs left somewhere that I have to sacrifice, and then we're going to be at a beautiful 200 army supply. Now, sadly for me, we do need enough gas. I'm not gonna lie. Here, I thought we actually had made it already. Because I was like, okay, we sacrificed every SCV. I thought I calculated correctly that I had 28 BCs and then I was gonna make 5 more. But then it turns out that we still have 6 SCVs and we need to wait for them to mine gas, but that's all right. Now, I was scanning around a little bit, seeing how many bases he had. I still think we were quite fortunate with how little our opponent expanded here. Like, I really thought it was going to be more. Now, one downside here, guys, is that I am really doing this with 0 money. I have 175 minerals and 10 gas, which means that I will indeed not be able to repair my battlecruiser. Like, even though I could just drop a mule to repair it, I also need gas to repair a battlecruiser, and that is sadly not looking like it's happening so far. Now, there are 4 stalkers in my main. That is actually a little bit annoying. And I think that's where I'm going to take some damage on my battlecruiser as well. This battlecruiser is going to win the fight, but it's going to take damage, and I won't be able to repair it. So now, my beautiful army composition is ruined, guys. I have 1 low HP battlecruiser. If you're going to go down to the red HP, now obviously, my army is still absolutely massive. And now our army has been assembled. I should probably be dropping a couple mules now, just so I can replenish my mineral income, or restart my mineral income, get like a little bit of a small bank going, and then I would be able to rebuild SCVs in the case that this game ends up in something absolutely insane. Like, if this game ends up being like, you know, absolute crazy base trade where we both have no economy, I have 2 BCs and this guy has, I don't know, 2 carriers or whatever, right? In that case, I would really want to restart my economy. But this is what it looks like, guys. 198 supply of pure battlecruisers and 1 Raven in the mix. If this guy does not have a million Tempest, I don't think he can actually beat this. He would have to storm everything 100 times. And I'm looking at it now. He's making a lot of Archons. He definitely has an air army, and there we go. It's going to be mass Void Rays, but I have 33 Yamatos, including an anti-armor missile. Look at his army just absolutely evaporate under those Yamatos, and I think, yeah, safe to say that we absolutely crushed him like an ant there. And that's what I was expecting, guys. You need the Tempest. You need a million cannons. You need a million batteries, because otherwise that is what happens to your army. Absolutely gets evaporated. And look at the units lost there. It was double. The units loss was actually double here, and now I'm going to show the fight once again in a little bit more detail. It is 33 BCs against 20 Void Rays and 11 Stalkers. That's what happens when you give your army away, guys. He had 71 supply in probes that he couldn't use. Though I have to say, judging by the resources, we actually did own him a little bit, because he should have had more. Now, look at the units lost on the left side, by the way, as this fight is going on. His units lost is climbing so freaking fast, because the BCs with the Yamatos and the armor missile are just insanely strong. And that is going to be it for today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed me destroying a Grandmaster with pure battlecruisers and 1 Raven, of course, 200 supply. I really had a very hard time recording this, because a lot of the games I got absolutely dunked on. But that's going to be it for today. Hope you guys had a good time. If you did, subscribe to the channel, give the video a like, and I'll see you all for the next video. Adios.